The story of Toledo, Ohio begins with the Great Black Swamp. This region of northwest Ohio was covered by a glacially fed wetland. This swampy wetland made it very difficult to navigate and settle the area, causing Toledo to be settled later than the surrounding regions. The opening of the Erie Canal in 1825 allowed settlers a path to reach Toledo without having to go through the swamp. These settlers arrived at the mouth of Swan Creek through the Maumee River. They consisted mostly of traders, farmers, tradesmen, and land speculators. As more and more started arriving and experiencing the swampy conditions of Toledo, they started calling it Frogtown, a nickname that's still prevalent in the culture of Toledo today. The story of Toledo would be incomplete without discussing the fight between Ohio and Michigan over which state should have jurisdiction over the land. Villages had been popping up along the Maumee River, and people began to seek control over the northern part, where the river connected to Lake Erie, because they saw the potential economic benefits. Ohio became a state in 1803, with its borders including the valuable port area known as the Toledo Strip. When Michigan began working towards its statehood in 1835, a dispute broke out over who should truly have jurisdiction over this area. This is because the Northwest Ordinance of 1787 had given Michigan the territory from the bottom of Lake Michigan straight across east to Lake Erie, which, if you draw that line, does include Toledo. Ohio, however, had already claimed Toledo as part of its state. This conflict, known as the Toledo War, was brought to an end when Michigan accepted the Upper Peninsula in exchange for the Toledo Strip as its terms for joining the Union and becoming a state. The Miami-Erie Canal opened in 1845, causing Toledo to become a large port on Lake Erie with connections to Cincinnati and to the Ohio River. It had also begun establishing extensive railroad infrastructure by the 1850s, which, with its connections to the port, made Toledo a major railroad hub in the U.S. These geographic and infrastructural benefits made Toledo grow quickly into an industrial leader. Many industries were sprouting up, and businesses were moving their headquarters to Toledo. One of the most important of these was in 1892, when Edward Drummond Libby moved his HQ for the Libby Glass Company to Toledo. Their important and prevalent presence in the city earned it the nickname the Glass City, which is also still in use today. Other industries were involved in the production of iron, lumber, coal, and shipbuilding. All of these industrial plants had great locations in East Toledo and along the Maumee River. The abundance of good-paying jobs available in the area led to high immigration into Toledo, especially from German, Polish, Italian, Slavic, Greek, and African American immigrants. Another crucial factor in the growth of Toledo occurred in 1909 when John Willis decided to move the Willis Overland Company to Toledo. This move helped Toledo to become recognized as a leader in the automobile manufacturing and parts production, second only to Detroit, Michigan. Also, John Willis lived in Toledo in order to oversee his company, and the house that he lived in is actually my family's house now. The Great Depression hit Toledo hard. It flourished through the 1920s, and in the 1930s, their heavy reliance made Toledoans very vulnerable to the economic crisis. Unemployment rates got as high as 80% during the Depression. Then, the outbreak of World War II saved Toledo and kick-started its industrial businesses once more. Toledo was considered an important inland port for the war effort, and it also helped in producing the materials needed. Perhaps the most important of these was the Jeep. During World War II, Willis Overland manufactured over 350,000 Jeeps, mostly to be used by troops overseas. Due to the city's major resurgence during the war, the Toledo Blade hired Norman Bell Geddes in 1945 to design a master plan for the city. This plan was called Toledo Tomorrow, and it was a large 3D model focusing mostly on the downtown area that was displayed in the Toledo Zoo and received national recognition. Not much from this plan was actually accomplished, however, as citizens flocked to the suburbs. Suburban malls made the necessity of a thriving downtown less necessary. There were efforts to improve the downtown and retain some of the residents of the city, but with very little success. Then, in the late 1960s, freeway construction made this migration to the suburbs even more prevalent and difficult to stop. The term Rust Belt was used in the 1970s to describe the Midwestern industrial towns whose outdated technology and factories were essentially just sitting there getting rusty. Many factories were closed as manufacturing moved to Mexico for much cheaper production costs. This made many employees lose their jobs and move away. In 2000, a comprehensive development plan called the Toledo 2020 Plan was made. This plan was also updated in 2011. It was more for the general planning of the Toledo area. Then in 2002, a plan that was specifically focused on the redevelopment of the downtown, aptly named the Downtown Plan, was created. The goal of this plan was to create a framework for a development for the downtown and affirm its role as a community gathering place on the Maumee River, a dynamic center of government and business, a cultural, leisure, and entertainment destination, a collection of mixed-use neighborhoods, and a showcase of urban design and historic architecture. The most recent cause for improvement to the downtown was when ProMedica, a large local healthcare organization, moved their headquarters downtown back onto the riverfront in 2017. This move involved renovating an old former steam plant into their new building. Since then, the downtown has been growing quickly, with many people moving and spending time and money downtown. Also, lots of money is being invested in restoring and developing the area, helping to create something that looks more like the flourishing, vibrant downtown that existed 100 years ago.